So, hey Vijay, thank you so much for joining us today and for
Thanks,
your
hey,
time.
Supriya.
Cool. So, I'll ask you a couple of questions, and what I want is for the viewers to get to know your story and to get inspired about how content writing can be a very successful career or even a side hustle, right? So, to begin with, give us a little bit of your story, who you are, where you're from, etc.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Supriya, for inviting me in. And let me put it on record first up, right? So I did take your course about a little less than a year back, and it has been one great journey after that. And um, while I haven't taken any of other content writing courses, this was one of my first, and it has been one of the best courses and the kind of insights that I get even to this day by interacting with the WhatsApp group members of the cohort or with you on a regular basis. It's adds exceptional value day in and day out, right? To go back to the question that you asked, so I am an IT engineer by training, and I've spent close to 15 years in the industry before I decided to switch. And I switched from IT back in 2013 to the field of education. And then I started my own school. And right now I'm working uh, as the principal of a 10 plus 2 college in Karnataka. And one thing that I had always loved doing, right from my time during the IT days, or be it after I moved to the field of education, was writing. And writing definitely was something that excited me, and possibly that was the reason why I could manage a blog consistently for nearly a decade. And the one blog that I maintained for nearly 12 years was focused on IT trends in the Indian space. So back in 2001, when I passed out of my engineering degree, IT was just taking off, and it was taking off with a few bumps. Remember the dot-com burst, right? And then I thought, why not start with something that keeps the public informed about trends in that space? And that's how the blogs got started. And I was blogging consistently for nearly a decade. And then when I moved to education, I also started a blog in parallel to cover education. But the moment which I was looking for was, how do I translate this ability of mine to write into something tangible for myself, right? It's okay to write for passion. It's okay to write to spread knowledge. But at some point, you start wondering, can it also make me a few extra bucks, right? That was the inspiration. And that's when I started scouting for work. But then I suddenly realized writing a passion hobby blog is different from scouting for actual work, right? There are a few steps that are missing in my portfolio. And that's when I started looking out for some course that I could take. And that's when I happened to come across your 30-day email course. And from then, it has been one great journey, right? So no second thoughts about that.
Yeah. So what made you decide to join the 8-week program? Because as you know, the 30-day email course is like free, and I think it's a very valuable course. And you had been blogging for over a decade. So what made that shift? Where was the point where you said, no, I should do this? And what was the motivation behind it?
Now, I think the amount of value, you did mention that it's a valuable course, but I would say it is one of those rare courses that not just adds value, but it throws insights into a lot of other things, right? And for me, that was the game changer, because not only was I receiving an email every day in my inbox with valuable content writing tips, but I was able to peer inside the life of an actual content writer who has spent more than a decade in that space. And that experience with which you so confidently put across certain things that work, certain things that don't work. I think that makes a big difference. And that's what for me was the time when I decided I should definitely spend more time with Supriya to get to know more tips from her. And that's what made me sign up for the course.
And now you're stuck with me. But so when you did join the 8-week program, what were some of the expectations that you came with, and how was your experience of the program? Like, from a learning standpoint, from the content standpoint, from, whatever I ended up saying, like the style of mentorship. Any thoughts on that?
Um, so expectations, yes, they were high because your email 30-day email program really ups the ante over there. And I'm glad to say that not even one session out of the 8-week intensive program was a session that I regret, right? Every session had so much of value in it. And I have made copious notes. I have made so much of notes that it really takes me a lot of time. And I'm glad I have made
Sorry,
that
you're breaking up.
because that's now helping me. Whenever I get a doubt, whenever I hit a roadblock in my writing, sorry. So I was just saying that the amount of value that comes through the email course, um, I think that sets the expectations high. And not a single day in your 8-week intensive course seemed like it was just bare bones, right? They had so much of meat around it, so much of content, and so much of value. And so much of copious notes that I've made that I even refer back to them even now. And whenever I hit a roadblock, usually my first uh, thing that I do is go back to the notes, and I usually find some nugget of wisdom that you have shared that helps me overcome that roadblock, right? And in terms of the actual 8-week intensive course, yes, no doubt, it's much more than intensive. I think you should rename it as super intensive, right? But
Yeah.
I'm glad it was intensive for a reason, because what happens is, if it's, I've seen with online courses, when the courses are too stretched, people tend to lose track. Both the trainer as well as the trainee, both of them lose track. Here, everybody knows that it's a span of 2 months. So 2 months, I keep my focus completely on track, and that delivered a ton of value for me.
Yeah. And I think I do have this tendency of cramming a lot of material in. Um, but which is why I think the option of going and doing the next batch of, extending if you feel like at your own pace is also available to people. And I've seen a lot of people utilize that also, right? When they're not able to keep up with the pace, they move on and join the upcoming batches, because life happens to everyone, right? Sometimes work calls, sometimes, something happens. So I'm glad to know that it met your expectations. Um, and you've been one of the people who've got an opportunity to work on live projects with me. And I was just looking at our association, and I think there's been over 3 lakh worth of side hustle that has happened. So any thoughts on how that went for you? And were you like, was that something that you expected? Because it's quite a bit of ROI.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a very valid point, Supriya, right? I never came into the course expecting or even having the slightest inkling that our association will lead me to so many live projects. And while money has been definitely welcome, it has been coming in, that's one thing. But the way I have approached it is keep that 1 year as a learning period, right? It's not just enough if you do a 2-month course and close it at that. You need to put everything that you have taught about into practice. And that's when you really run into problems, right? So that's where I find the real value. And that's where I value the hand holding that you do. So it's not just the 8-week intensive course, it is the period after that that now in hindsight I value more, because one, during the 8-week intensive, we are picking up things. And you are rightly so in your framework, tentative about giving big projects that might come your way. But having completed the course and seeing live projects come in from your end, to me, I think that brings in a lot of confidence. Yes, mistakes happen. I have made a lot of them, and I'm glad that you are there to handhold and correct us. But along the way, the learning has been extremely good. And at the same way, yeah, with every project, I do make notes to ensure that whatever happens is a stepping stone to the next stage. Because unless you keep learning, you don't improve. That's what I believe in. And the 8 months post the course, I think they have been really valuable. I have worked with you on close to almost all the clients that you have been servicing, and I've done work across different spectrums too, right? It could be a sustainability report for somebody. It could be blogs on in the tech space for somebody else. It could be short form content. It could be long form content, right? There also have been work on related to website development, website content for companies, top of the line companies, right? So each one has been a different kind of learning. And whenever at times, I know I have, when we had private conversations, there were times when I expressed my frustration. And the way you say that's how, or that's what is to be expected. See, that's experience talking, right? And that's what I value the most.
Yeah. So, like you said, you've been working across a lot of clients that I worked with. What would you, without taking any names, of course, can you give me one or two maybe instances where it was like, wow, I never thought of it like this before, or any experience that really stood out for you?
Um, so almost every experience has been an eye opener. But if you were to ask me to lay my finger on one or two, I think working especially for um, um, some of the tech companies, right? They have been real value add situations. Um, Especially, I remember one conversation where I had a call along with you and the client, and we suddenly realized 2 minutes into the call that the client was not clear about what they wanted, right? And I was like, what's happening here, right? Because the client had something in mind, but they were absolutely clueless about on what was the end result or what is the end content piece that they wanted to have get from it. And that's where I thought the way you handled it, right? Wherein you said, why don't you look at it from a different perspective altogether? You have so much of content in the form of, let's say, webinars that's lying with you, and they wanted to convert it to something tangible in the written form. Now, the kind of ideas that you put in there, which change their entire perspective, and how you change that situation to an advantage both for them as well as for us as content writers. I think that was phenomenal. I think that's definitely one place where it was a real eye opener for me. Right. The second thing that I would definitely want to talk about um, is the ability to negotiate with customers. It could be negotiation in terms of the time that we need to complete certain work satisfactorily. It could be negotiation in terms of uh, what is the expectation and how much of a content we need from them to do a successful job about it. So I think some of those negotiations that I've been part of in calls, I think they have been real eye openers too, because a lot of times it's about communicating those expectations very clearly. And as content writers, while we may be great content writers, a lot of us are poor communicators. So that is another side that needs constant polishing. And that I think the association with you has helped a lot.
True. Thank you, Vijay. And I think the last point that you made, about becoming a successful content writer is way more than being just a writer, because you're effectively running a business, right? Unless you decide to join a company, which is also like then you become an employee. But if you're doing this as a freelancer, because most of us value our freedom, time, yeah, etc., or you want to do it as a side hustle, then you're effectively running a business, and that requires a lot more, like building client relationships, building those networks to find clients, making managing clients' expectations. All of those are factors that most people don't think about. They're just like mindlessly writing whatever comes their way and not really thinking more strategically for the client. And that's where they fail to earn the big money, right? But I think that is really super important. And in the tech mastermind that I'm doing nowadays, that's also like we have started with the strategy part of it, and then we're moving on to the writing bit slowly. But I like you really hit the nail of the head when you said that that's a really, really important part of being a content writer's journey. So,
Correct. And just to add to that point, I think what you said, a lot of us are blind to the fact that we don't realize how much our writing is left wanting, especially when it comes to meeting the expectations of customers. We always feel as individuals that we are extremely good writers just because we have some good vocabulary up our sleeve and we can construct some beautiful sentences that we as owners of those sentences fall in love with. Right? But the expectation of customers meeting that is a totally different ball game together altogether. And that realization sinks in very fast, right? When I step into those 8 weeks of intensive course.
yeah, and I remember, I think two main learnings. One was that, of course, understanding the client intention is very important. I know that initially when you started, there had been a lot of redlining on your work, right? Which was mainly about the intention, not getting the what does the client want right. And the second part is the tonality of the client, right? From a message standpoint, they want you to be on point, and from a tonality point, also they want you to be on point, right? Like recently, we reworked on two articles because the
Yes.
tonality was not what the client wanted. So those things really make a difference, because ultimately, what is profitability in content writing, right? You don't have any infrastructure that you're paying for. Your your time is what you're investing, right? So the more you end up reworking on the same piece, the less value you are getting for the time that you've invested, because the client is only paying a certain amount. So profitability for a content writer is to make sure that their whatever they work on, they spend a little, as little time as possible to do a great job, and then avoid reworks because they are more time intensive. So I think over time you have also built that capability, right? That how
Yeah.
do and that understanding comes that okay, this is what will fly here and this is what will not work.
Yeah, that is an experience you only get by working on live
Yeah.
projects. And I'm glad that this is one course that really allows us access to live work, right? And nothing can beat that, the kind of value that brings. And the other thing that I definitely want to put on record is the wonderful kind of network that has been built around the cohorts that we have been having over the past 1 year. And we have some exceptionally talented people. Um, some of them are new, but slowly, I'm sure that over the next 6 months, 8 months, 1 year time frame, they'll find their footing in the space of content writing. And I'm glad that we are able to build this great team.
Yeah.
Um, what's also equally important is having to stay with content writing, even though there are ups and downs, right? There have been days when you felt that you had to quit and just drop everything and just run away, right? And I want to be frank about that because a lot of us come thinking that whatever we write is acceptable and uh, there's no better masterpiece that I can produce than this. But when the client says, no, this doesn't work, and you go back to the drawing board, a lot of times it has surprised me that I have been able to produce something that sounded much better in hindsight later. But initially, I was like, oh, this doesn't work. Why not? I thought this was my best piece so far. Right. So I think that sinks in when you do live work and you start realizing that over a period of time, as you understand customer expectations, you also strive to put your best foot forward the first time around, as you said, about the maximizing the value you bring for each hour that you spend at content writing. And that's very true.
And I think over time, people also realize, and I'm sure because you were doing paid work earlier, but folks who were doing it, there's a stark difference between people who are looking at that 1 rupee, 2 rupee kind of content, like the clients who want that, um, versus clients who are paying premium for content pieces and what their expectations are. So there's like a big gap. I think, sorry, most people forget that, people pay money for value. They're not gonna pay if you don't bring value to the table. So I'm glad that folks in the 8-week program are learning that slowly and steadily. Cool. So I have like a last-ish question, which is what plans next? Now that you've tasted what it feels like to earn money as a content writer, to you've got some real world experience of what people want. Do you have any plans and on how do you want to
Um,
scale in this
no
space?
immediate uh, big plans, but yeah, that was never there, right? So I just wanted to put my writing skills to practice so that that could earn some extra bucks, and I have already achieved that. And as we always say, sky is the limit. I can expand it to any amount that I wish to, right? That is not an issue anymore. But where I see myself going is try to polish my skills as much as possible. Again, give myself another 6 months, 1 year time frame, and keep learning, because I don't think the learning curve never ends for, especially in a creative field like content writing. And it
Yeah.
becomes all the more challenging with the onslaught of your chatbots and other Gen AI stuff. So you have to stand out as an exceptional content writer. The only option is to keep yourself on that learning curve and be one step ahead of everything else, right? So yes, my association with the group as well as with um, content writing will continue, and I wish to slowly expand it. I'm not in any hurry to expand that, but what I definitely want to become an exceptional content writer with each passing day. And my message to aspiring content writers is set your goals high, but also be realistic. Keep your feet grounded, because when you keep your feet grounded, you know that if you really want to soar high, you need to give that time for your body to prepare, your mental, your brain to get ready to reach those levels that are expected of you, right? They have that famous anecdote, like you have the eaglets, right? Before they soar, they take a long time getting fed from their mothers till they eventually make that jump out of the nest. But when they do it, that's an eagle soaring, right? So
Hmm.
take your time, get yourself prepared, put the necessary time to writing. Like one of the uh, things that we frequently talk about is spend some time writing every single day, right? Now, that's been one valuable wisdom that I have been following from Supriya's classes every day, whether I write it for the client or for my own blog. I spend time to write at least about 750 to 1,000 words every day. And that helps a lot, right? And that is preparation for the long term. It's not preparation for tomorrow or the day after. And that's a message I would definitely want to leave with aspiring content writers, especially youngsters.
Super. And I think that aligns with what I also say, right? A lot of people ask me, what are the books I can read for content writing, or what are the, you know, what can I read that will help me become a better content writer? And I tell them there is not content writing books that you should be reading, but rather everything and anything that you can get your hands on to expand your knowledge. But all that reading is not going to help you if you don't write, because the only way you can't learn content writing by me talking to you about it. You can't learn it by reading books. You will only learn it when you put it in practice and get feedback from other people. And a lot of people are scared of feedback, right? They don't want to show their work because they're like, what if it's not good enough? If it's not good enough, we tell you what's not working and then you improve on it, right? Otherwise, how will you ever learn? So I totally align with that, right? Like practice writing and get thoughts from other people on your work so you can keep improving every day. So
Very true. Very true.
Thank you so much, Vijay. This was an interesting
Okay.
chat. And
It was
thank you.
another nice conversation having with you. Always value it.
Super. So thank you, and then have a good rest of the day. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.